The following episode was originally recorded for a private podcast as part of the Equipped for Life course. It has been edited for public release, but may reference training material from the Equipped for Life course.
Have you ever used a mind palace?
No.
I saw the episode of Sherlock where they're like doing the weird head thing. I think I get what that means.
I mean, like, I saw that episode of Sherlock, and I think they have a good mental representation, or like they do a good job,
like visualizing
a mind palace. But that's not the way I use my mind palace. I've actually used it, and I used it as a child, and it was really helpful for me to organize thought when I was like marinating on a really complex idea.
To explain what a mind palace is.
It's a imaginative physical representation of memory storage. So my mind palace is a library, and in the library I have lots of bookshelves, and I have a writing desk, and my writing desk is like super awesome. And so it is like, it's like the best writing desk. I would never be able to afford it in real life. But I sit down at it, and it's like this gorgeous wood carving, and it has a ship in a bottle, and there's no computer. It's all by like really nice fountain pens, obviously. That would ruin the ambiance. I have a really great ambiance.
So you don't have like a water slide in there?
No.
Like, you can put anything you want.
I do have
there.
lounge chairs. If I need to lay there and like lounge in my lounge chairs and think, I do.
Okay, hold on.
So I imagine myself doing it.
What do you mean if you need to lay there in your mental representation of yourself in your mind palace? In what circumstances would you need a lounge chair instead of sitting at a desk in your
Because
mind
it's
palace?
more relaxing. If I need to be relaxed.
More mentally relaxing?
Yeah. It's calming. Like, I need to think through this, and I can't sit up straight right now. I need to lie down in my mind.
Okay, so is this like a first person shooter or like a third person shooter?
Both.
Like are you seeing yourself? Okay.
Both.
At the same time?
No. I can switch back and forth. Depends on what I'm thinking about.
That's so
What
interesting.
kinds of things will cause it to be first person, and what kinds of things will cause it to be third person?
Sure. So first person, when I was learning Latin, I was having difficulty with some vocabulary memorization. And so like I was trying to memorize to sail. And so I took my boat out of the bottle, and I carved to sail in Latin on the boat. And I put it back in the bottle. And so first person, if I need to remember what that is, I go and I look at my desk and I see it carved in there, and I can remember what to sail is in Latin. Or like just different weird stuff like that. I know you're getting me confused.
I'm trying to figure out if this is awesome or weird.
It's both.
Figured it out yet.
I don't use it all the time.
That's weird.
Let's not talk about it.
I want to see like a sitcom where someone's talking about their mind palace, and then like the stereotypical dumb guy's like, "I've got a mind shack." like everyone's got a palace with like all these different rooms and things like that.
I can see like Phoebe from Friends talking about her mind palace.
Your mind shack.
Sometimes if I'm thinking about a thought and I am like really exhausted, I can pretend I'm pacing in the library instead of pacing in real life. I am sorry. It's crazy.
No, like, how much more helpful would that be? Like, if we could all just do that instead of actually need a place big enough for us to pace, like, we could have a smaller office.
It's undoubtedly practical. I have no ability to conceive of this thing of which you speak.
Sure.
Like, this is so strange to me.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. You make the podcast interesting.
Can you like memorize a book by inscribing all over the walls of your mind palace the contents of the book?
It would ruin the ambiance of the mind palace.
That is a dodge. You didn't answer my question. You couldn't you create mentally a room in your mind palace where the walls are for memorization of books or something?
Totally. I think you could. It depends on your potential. If I like would go and write a bunch of things on my walls, I probably forget what is there, and it would mess with the mind palace. Like
the integrity of it?
Mm-hmm. So no. Like if I write down on a Post-it note in my mind palace or something, and I fold up the note and I put it in the writing desk drawer, I can remember what was on that note, but I have to, in my mind, imagine me taking it out and reading it. I couldn't do that much. I couldn't do that with a book as easily. It would be like really confusing to me, I guess.
So what are we doing today?
So our last podcast was really interesting. Rachel had this really good idea of having us do some role play. And we enjoyed it so much that given that like the whole time I was on the hot seat, I want to like give Josh and Rachel a chance to play pro-life and kind of see how it goes. And I really want us to be able to do this, particularly because I think one of the things that's really important about dialogue is trying to find like your own style. Like Josh and Rachel are going to do some things that are going to be different than me. And in a non-relativistic sense, like both are right, even though it's different because it's going to be like suited to what the person's comfortable with. So in order for us to all kind of get a taste of different ways of doing things, we're going to do some more role play. So we'll start off and Josh will be pro-life and I'll be pro-choice. And I guess we'll just start off in front of a pool table again.
Okay. Hey, would you like to center poll?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Well, coming over, we're asking people if they think that abortion should be legal up to 20 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it should.
You think, yeah? Would love to learn more about your view. Like certainly, lots of students today have signed the yes side, but lots for very different reasons. And frankly, I'm not really that interested in this poll. This is just me trying to get you to stop and talk to me. I'm way more interested in dialogue. So, like, would you maybe tell me?
That's clever.
Yeah, right. Would you tell me more about kind of like why it is that you think abortion should be legal up to 20 weeks?
I don't know, man. Like, I think it's just it's a woman's choice. It's not really our place to say. You know what I mean?
Like by our place, you mean like as guys?
Yeah, like it's not up to us. Like we can't have a baby.
No, so that's definitely true. Like we totally can't have a baby.
Yeah. That'd be freaky though.
It would be crazy, right? I think I want to maybe try to make an argument for you about why maybe it should be okay for guys to try to form an opinion about this.
Yeah, sure.
Like it's totally fine with me. Like if you end up deciding like as a guy I'm way pro-choice, like that's fine. But I think like that would make more sense to me than a view of I'm a guy and I just don't care at all. Because like my view is that if pro-life people are right, this is a really important issue because that would mean like thousands of babies are being killed every day. That'd be bad. If pro-choice people are right, it's still a really big issue because then that would mean that there's all these pro-lifers that are trying to make a medical procedure illegal and way more dangerous. Like either way, this seems like an important issue. But I totally get why it would seem like, yeah, but this is not our issue.
It is important. Like I'm not disagreeing about that.
Okay.
It's really important. It's just like it's not our thing, man.
I think I get where you're coming from. So let me throw kind of a weird analogy at you and see what you think. If I was fishing at the lake sometime and I look over to the left and I see this like weird thing happening. I see a woman literally pushing her car into the lake. And I'm like, whoa, and then I'm like, what's going on? And I look into the back seat and there's like a baby in the back seat. You can probably see where I'm going with this. But anyway, so let's just say for sake of argument that what's going on with her is she's going through major postpartum depression. Something that you and I as guys will never be able to really understand. There's no, like we can try to like learn more about it and have sympathy and stuff, but like we're not really going to get it. It's not our thing, right? It can't be our thing. We're dudes. So my attitude toward her isn't going to be one of being all like judgy and mean and, how dare you, like that kind of thing. Like I'm going to be really sad for her. I'm going to want to see like, is there anything that I can do to get her help? I'm still going to jump into the water and try to save the kid though, too. Like I'm going to try to help them both. And that seems really reasonable to me, even though I can't experience postpartum depression. So if pro-lifers are right, like my current view is that there's not a good philosophical reason to discriminate against the unborn. If that's right, it seems like it would be a good thing for even guys to be thinking carefully about. What do you think?
Wow. This is an interesting conversation.
I love interesting conversations.
Yeah, I think I'm like getting where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. Like we should care. I think you're right. And like, I got to think about that. Like we've got to care about this issue because no matter who's right, it's a big deal.
Right.
And I think that's fair.
Cool.
But like, I still feel like maybe like we should elect, like make the Supreme Court full of women. And then all like women could decide it. And I just like, it seems weird for men to be deciding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm tracking with you. In fact, I feel like this is something that I'm hearing from pro-choice people more lately, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Like there was this famous picture when Trump kind of did his first like kind of anti-abortion move as a president. Like there's this famous picture where it's like all these male white legislators like surrounding him. It just like made it look like what are all the guys doing, like passing the laws that have to do with women's bodies and stuff.
That's
like
what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'm tracking with you about that. I basically think that it shouldn't really just be guys or just be girls. Like I feel like as soon as we're saying it should only be one, like it should be a group of only one gender being in charge. Like if it feels kind of sexist, like at that point, I think men and women together, like working together, can come up with a lot of really good thoughts. And I just feel a little icky whenever I hear someone say like, let's not have women like involved at all in the decision making here, or let's not have men involved at all in the decision making here. I'd rather focus on the ideas and whether the ideas are good than like how do we have any men involved? Do we have any women involved?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But like, what about like all of the people that are suffering? Like, I don't know. I don't want you to like come in here and swoop in with your big government plan to tell everyone what to do.
Right.
And like the result of that is like so many people, like they're in bad shape.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I'm not there. Like it seems like what we got going here, it's okay. Like it's working. Like the society is working, and women are being able to like get jobs and stuff, and that's great.
Agreed.
And if you mess with the system, then who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, see, a lot of common ground here. Like, I agree with you that there are a lot of things that could happen. If abortion becomes illegal, it could become harder for some people to get jobs. It could be harder for some people to get out of poverty, things like that. I agree with that. I don't know if I agree that, like, things are okay now. I think there's
all right.
There's a lot of poverty now. There are so many people right now who are struggling. From paycheck to paycheck, who are just in the depths of poverty, and guys getting girls pregnant and then leaving them, and then forcing them to just figure everything out on their own. There's all kinds of like really bad stuff now, and I'm not okay with that. I want to see like society get like better. Stuff. Let's see if we can help people who are kind of on the bottom rungs of the ladder to make it easier for them to climb up. So like I think we agree about that, right? I think what I'm trying to figure out is, should we keep abortion legal just to help other people get out of poverty? Because my view, remember, is that I think abortion like actually kills babies. Like when I say baby, I don't just mean like it's like, I don't think it's just like a blob of cells. Like I think it'd be kind of like if someone said, if we kill toddlers, sometimes it'll really help people to get out of poverty. I'm like, I really do want people to get out of poverty. Like that's great, but like I don't think we should go that far to help people get out of poverty.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable saying baby. Like it's like a little human, right? Like it's
sure.
I'm not saying
say little human.
I'm not saying it's like a rat.
Yeah,
but like baby seems like a little much.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to use rhetorically loaded terms. I'm trying to, in that case, I'm trying to help you understand like where I'm coming from. Like for me, I'm not instantly persuaded by the
like cradle the little zygote, like a baby, like that's your.
That would be difficult. But yeah, I think that zygotes are morally equal to toddlers, and that probably sounds really, really strange. But that's that having thought about it a lot, like philosophically, and thinking about like pro-choice arguments, that's my view right now.
Morally equal.
If you change my mind about that, I'm with you, man. Like I'm totally pro-choice at that point.
Okay, well, so what about like if there's a fire in like a laboratory and like you can save a baby, or you can save like 10 little zygotes in like test tubes and stuff.
Yeah.
Are you're saying you would save the zygotes?
Have you been enjoying your Philosophy 101 class lately?
It's great.
Yeah.
It opens my mind.
I know, right? Yeah, so I think that's it's sort of a fair question. I don't think it's going to get you what you're looking for, though, because I
mean,
think
you said they're equal. Like, I'm not saying just like throw them in the trash, but equal.
Yeah. So I do think that. I think that in that thought experiment, my intuition pumps are working in a strange way to the point where, if I'm being honest, I don't actually know what I would do. And here's a couple of things that is going on for me that makes this particular thought experiment difficult for me. Is
It feels like you're about to dodge the question. You're not gonna like dodge the question on me.
Give me a chance, and then you tell me if you think I'm dodging the question.
Sorry.
When I imagine, like, I really want to imagine, like, I don't want to just like, like, oh, it's a weird thought experiment. Like, I really picture myself, and I've spent time picturing myself in this scenario, trying to figure out what I would do. And I don't think I can tell you definitively what I would do, but I'm willing to share with you, like, why it at least would cause me to hesitate, or why it's not super clear to me what I would do. Is a few of the things going on. Is one, a zygote in a test tube. Transferring that to a uterus or a place where it's going to be able to survive and eventually continue to live and be born is not an easy thing with current technology. So I don't see all of those zygotes in like the standard version of this thought experiment as being like definitively like they're all like, let's say, viable. Certainly, I think they have a right to life. I don't think they should be killed, but the difference between that, like where I can grab the toddler and run, like with like a football, like I know I can go, I know I can save the toddler, where I don't know what happens to this suitcase of 10 zygotes in a thing like Dennis Nedry grabbed, like that kind of thing. Like I don't know what happens at that point. Can I get them to a place where they can stay cool enough to survive? Will they end up being just used for research, or are they going to actually be implanted someone? Like, that's one thing that's confusing for me. Another thing that frankly is really hard for me is thinking about a toddler burning to death. Yeah. The zygotes don't feel anything. Like, I don't make arguments about like abortion tortures babies to death. I think usually it doesn't. I think we should be really, really accurate about like the way we talk and not, I don't want to give you like pro-life urban legends or something like that. I don't think first trimester babies feel pain, or at least I'm not convinced they are. And so that's affecting my intuitions a lot. It might still be that, like, ontologically speaking, which I'm saying because you're in Philosophy 101 class, you know what that means. I was like, ontologically speaking, like, it still might be the right answer to save the 10. I'm just admitting that I don't know what I actually would do if I were in that scenario. There's a long answer, but I'm trying to be like really, really transparent with you about what's going on for me there. I think it's a fair question.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it seems like an obvious question. Like, obviously, you run out with a little baby. And I think like there's not that much harm being done if 10 zygotes die, and I think that's why I'm having a hard time like going with you here. This is not what difference does it make? Yeah, what difference does it make to the world? Yeah,
it makes sense to me that like
it's the same thing as if they just never existed.
Your intuitions like right now are not working the same way mine are about zygotes, and like that makes a lot of sense to me because it seems like no one's ever going to know the difference. But I would say, like, I'm not trying to like use this in like a rhetorically like emotional way. But like usually when people ask me how many kids I have, I'll usually just say 3 because that's the easier answer. But the true answer is I've got 5 and 3 of them are living. Our first pregnancy ended at 10 weeks. The most difficult thing that my wife and I have ever gone through. And then my oldest was actually a twin, and the twin didn't survive. And I like, if you're right, then that means that it really might as well have been that they never existed. Like,
no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Like, it matters for you,
right?
But for a lot of people, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I agree with that.
That's like how much it's going to matter in their hearts.
Yeah.
Like, that's not.
Okay, I'm tracking with you. It seems like what you're saying is that the reason that it's not a big deal if the zygotes die is because, like, it's not going to have this negative effect on other people. It's like,
Yeah.
because there's no one that's going to ever have a relationship with them. No one would have tried to implant them, and then it
A
failed.
bunch of them
and they're
get miscarried
sad.
anyway, and no one knows the difference.
Right. It's totally true. There's a lot of miscarriages. I basically think that's irrelevant when it comes to trying to figure out someone's moral value, their intrinsic value. I think homeless people die every single day, and that really matters. And those were really valuable people, even though a lot of them die and no one ever knows. Like, there's like, did you ever see The West Wing?
Nah.
Oh, you see The West Wing. It's the best show ever, man. It's awesome. So there's this amazing episode in, I think, the first season where this homeless guy dies. And the only reason anyone finds out about it is because he was wearing a coat that had been donated by one of the White House staffers. Like, he gave it to, like, Goodwill or something like that. And then this guy got it, and it had his name in it. So now there's this dead homeless guy with this guy's coat. And they contact him and say, hey, we've got your coat. It was on a dead homeless guy. And he goes down there and thinking he's just going to pick up the coat, like he's not a very touchy-feely kind of guy. But then he notices that the guy's got like this veteran tattoo, and he starts asking about it and finds like no one knows who this guy is. And he ends up spending like a lot of time tracking down the guy's like homeless brother and saying like, we need a military funeral for this guy. He was in Vietnam and all this. Like this needs to be like, we can't just like throw these people away and act like it doesn't matter. It really, really matters, even though it's really sad this guy ended up homeless and you know, not with like that many friends. And I think that's right. I think it's right that the White House staffer in that episode saw this homeless person for the valuable person that he was.
Like, I think that's fine, but you're talking about like a veteran, right? Like, he did stuff for the world. He made a difference in the world. The zygotes, it makes no difference whether they're there or not.
So I can change the story and say he wasn't a veteran and that he never did anything for the world. He was
He still lived and had a brother and talked with people, right?
He could have been in his parents' basement until he was 40 years old playing Xbox and then died of a heart attack. Like, and I still think he was a valuable human being. I agree with you. He wasn't doing like stuff for society. I still think it matters. I think his life matters. I think it would be equally wrong if someone walked into that basement and shot him in the head, like because they got mad at him playing Call of Duty or something like that. It would be just as wrong as if someone went and shot me or you on this campus, even though you and I are doing more for society.
I don't know if I'd say just as wrong. Like, if someone's just playing Xbox their whole life, like their whole life, they're not doing anything for society.
Agreed.
And so, like, how much harm is it really? Like, they're just a drain.
Yeah, I think it is a harm to kill someone, even if that person is doing nothing for society. I like that. If that's not true, then I don't know why we don't just go into hospitals and kill all the people who are in comas. Like, you can harm people even if they don't know it. Not to mention the rest of society knows it. I think there's something to be said of thinking about people as having a certain kind of dignity. They should be treated a certain kind of way, regardless of how much help that they give society. I would defend you from someone who was trying to kill someone, even if you were doing nothing for society. Even if you were just hanging out in philosophy classes, talking from ivory towers, and doing nothing for the rest of society. I'm sure that's not the case. I mean, I hope not. But I would still defend you because you're a valuable person. And I'm coming from a place of, like, I care a lot about equality. I think human beings have an equal right to life, regardless of what they can do functionally or what they do for society. I think that's a better view than saying there are some people that are really valuable and there's some people that are, you know, kind of valuable, and there's some people that are like worthless and it's just fine for them to die.
I don't know. It just sounds idealistic.
Yeah, I don't think it's idealistic. I think it's a pro-equality view. Some people used to, like, you know, I mean, there were people that responded to civil rights advocates saying that just seems idealistic that we could ever get to a point where white people actually thought of black people as the same, and yet it was still the right thing to try to move society into a place where they were actually thinking more correctly than they were. I basically think right now, and we haven't really had the argument about why I think zygotes are equal yet. We're just kind of talking about our current views. But basically, I think right now you have the wronger view. And I would want you and the rest of society to get closer to a view that is like that more conforms to reality. I think the question for us is, does my view more conform to reality, or does your view more conform to reality? Because if you're right, I want to change my mind. I don't want to care about worthless zygotes. I only want to. I want to. If zygotes are worthless, then I want to spend the rest of my time focusing on some other issue where the valuable people are actually being harmed.
Well, do you just care about zygotes, or do you like want to make society a better place? It seems like your way of thinking about this results in more poverty, more hardship, and society being worse. But then like you feel better inside because the zygotes don't die.
Yeah.
And like I respect your ideals, like I do.
Right.
But I'm progressive, and I want society to be better.
I want society to be better too. I think society gets better, like a lot better, if we start thinking of all people as actually being equal and treating them that way. Even more so than if society makes it a little bit easier to get out of poverty. And so I think I'm sort of doing both. I would only take issue with the word just. I don't just care about zygotes. I care about people. I care about all kinds of people. I care about people who are being, human trafficked. I care about people who are in, horrible poverty and can't get out of it. I care about people who are being, treated in really bigoted ways by racist cops. Like I care about a lot of these different issues. I'm not fighting all of those issues or trying to make a real change in the world and all of those issues, because I basically think if I did that, then I would make basically no difference to any of the issues. So I'm focusing on on one, and I'm focusing on this one partially because I think this is the one where there is a great deal of societal confusion on an issue where a whole bunch of, I think, people are being killed. You could convince me to focus on a different thing, but I'm focusing on one and trying to make a difference there. And if something happened there, then maybe I go and focus on a different thing.
Yeah, but you seem like you don't care about like what the effects would be if we made abortion illegal. Like all of the down, like the level of suffering will go up.
Yeah.
Because whatever like pie in the sky ideals you have about little zygote babies, they're not noticing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think I want to ask you a clarification question because I've been operating under an assumption that I think actually might be wrong. And we got kind of started in a weird way where usually I get to ask a whole bunch of questions trying to find out about you, and you've been peppering me with questions the whole time. I still don't know a lot about your view. You keep on saying things like little zygote babies, they're not persons, they're just zygotes, they don't mean anything. And so I've been kind of operating under the assumption that like the main thing going on for you is that zygotes aren't valuable, and like this is like the main area of disagreement. But you keep on using phrases that are causing me to think that maybe that actually might not be the main issue for you. So let me ask you this. If you became convinced that I'm right about zygotes being valuable persons, would that affect your pro-choice beliefs? Would that make you pro-life or anti-abortion instead of pro-choice?
No.
Could you tell me a little bit about why? I was suspecting that's the case, but could you tell me a little bit about why? Like for a lot of people, as soon as they think that a zygote's a person, they're like, oh, wow, we shouldn't be killing those. So like what's going on there? What's going on for you, do you think, below the surface?
They don't make a difference to the world.
Yeah.
Like I want society to be better. And I think that my worldview results in a society with less suffering, more happiness, and everything gets better and better and better. And your view is unrealistic. Let's make everyone suffer so we can feel better inside by not letting an occasional person die.
Yeah. So like this is so helpful that you said that. It makes me wish that I'd asked that question before. I hear you. I think the main thing going on for you is that I think you and I think very differently about morality. Like when we're trying to do this assessment process of figuring out what is morally right and what is morally wrong, I think you and I are using different kind of equations to try to figure out the right answer. So let me feed back what I think is going on for you, and you correct me if I'm wrong. I think what's going on for you is when you're trying to figure out what's right or wrong, you're trying to figure out what is going to do something like provide the more good for the greater number of people, increase pleasure, decrease pain, something like that. And kind of whatever thing you can do that's going to increase the most pleasure or decrease the most pain from the greatest number of people, like that's going to be the morally right answer.
Yes. That's the best thing to do.
Right. So I disagree. But that is certainly the way that a lot of people try to work out morality. And so I think what I want to do, let's put abortion to the side. Let's talk about this. This is really interesting. Because if you're right, then I should be doing moral reasoning way differently. I think I want to try to help you understand why I think you're wrong, though. I think your worldview is going to get you the morally right answer sometimes, but not because it's the right way to do reasoning. I think it sort of accidentally gets the right answer sometimes. So let me ask you this, to try to give you an example of that. Like, you seem like a pretty healthy person. It seems like you're not just playing Xbox all the time or something like that. Like you seem pretty active.
No, I work out, man.
It's great. It's great. I don't, and I should. It seems like theoretically, the government could kidnap you and harvest your organs against your will and kill you and save 5 or 6 lives of people who needed those organs. Someone needed a heart transplant, someone needed, a kidney transplant, etc. That seems like if they did that, then that would increase pleasure by like a significant multiplier, and decrease pain by a significant multiplier. And it seems like at that point that would be the morally right thing to do. What do you think about that?
Like organ stealing stuff. I think it's like you're in like crazy, like futuristic sci-fi movie Scaryland with that suggestion. Like that's not really a better place exactly.
Nearly as futuristic sci-fi as the zygotes in the fertility thing on Fire. Like I think this could happen. I think this could happen. I think
the zygote fire could happen tomorrow.
Fair enough. I think this could happen tomorrow. I don't think this is like that weird of a thought experiment. Especially given that I talk to a lot of people who would ascribe to, what a lot of people would call utilitarianism. I talk to utilitarians all the time, and it makes sense to me. I think you see utilitarianism in most TV shows and movies. Like this is the way people are doing objective reasoning. I don't see. I think I'm wanting to know why it's wrong. Like if you can picture this happening, then try to go with the thought experiment. I'm trying to learn more about your view here. What exactly would be wrong, if you think it's wrong, with kidnapping you to save 6 lives?
I think if it's actually, like all things considered, doing the most good for the most number of people, then sucks to be me, man. Right.
But you don't actually think, all things considered, this would be the greatest good for the greatest number, right?
Probably not.
Right. Would you like to tell me why?
It's like scary society.
Yeah.
Like
if this was going on, then everyone's like
people are nervous all
houses.
The time. Yeah, and then everyone has to buy a gun, and that's just the worst thing ever. And so like we can't have that, and because then people are going to try to protect themselves and stuff, and then there's going to be government agents being killed and people being killed, and like it's not actually as clean and easy as what you're saying, I
agree. I think that would be exactly the right thing for people to do. I don't think I think you think this gets around the problem. I don't actually think this gets around the problem. So I'm just change the thought experiment to make this a little bit more obvious. Let's say that no one knows this is what happens. Let's say that like, you know, in the planning committee that was figuring this out, the planning committee of saving people's lives with stolen organs, Inc. They worked out like, okay, well, here would be a problem. If we do this a lot, then people are going to figure it out, and like they might catch us, or they might be freaked out. They might be hiding in their houses. That makes this a lot more difficult. So instead, we're going to do this really carefully. And so they get like a secret ops team, you know, led by Jack Bauer or something like that, to go out there, and they only kidnap one homeless person a month. And they decide they're only, really hard to notice. I mean, the West Wing guy only found out because there's this coat. Like this is what could happen. And they only save lives of people who like have college degrees or like clearly helping society, like doctors and things like that. Like those people are on the A list for getting kidnapped and killed homeless guys' heart transplant. At that point, what do you think morally about the situation of kidnapping one homeless person a month?
Do it.
Yeah?
Best for society.
Yeah. So I think this is what's wrong with your view. Like, I think you're really, really, really wrong. To the point where I kind of want to push you a little bit. Like, really? Like, is this really what you, like, you seem confident, but like, we're talking about actually kidnapping and killing people here. Like, are you sure? Like, is this? Are you just saying this because you don't want to lose?
You're saying let the doctor die for a homeless guy. Like,
I'm saying don't kill people. I think that's far more reasonable.
Same thing.
It's not.
Same thing.
Using rhetoric, and I don't like rhetoric. Come on, let's have a real conversation here.
What's the difference? All right, so your child, you got your kid in the bathtub, and he like falls in the water, and you just decide not to save him, and your wife's child, your child is too, I suppose, falls in the bathtub, or like she like drowns him intentionally. Yeah, same thing.
I don't think it's the same. I think it's like I basically think in that case is a distinction without a difference. I don't think it's the same thing. I was going to basically make the same thought experiment. I think at this point you're arguing with your own view, but I'll try to explain why. I think there's a big difference. In at least in some cases, I think there are some cases that are kind of more philosophically murky, but I think there are many cases where it is way different to kill someone versus letting them die of the ailment that they already had. If the doctor dies, what killed him?
What's he dying of?
Right. If the homeless guy dies, what killed him? Jack Bauer. Yeah. And I think that's really, really different. I think people sadly, tragically die of disease all the time, and it's awful. And I think the more that we can try to cure that stuff, the better. I just don't think we should be killing people in order to cure them.
But my intro to philosophy professor told me that trolley cases prove that there's no difference between killing and letting die.
Yeah, I know. And I think philosophy professors are really good at teaching people to think awfully. Like, I think you are maybe thinking worse now than you did before you took the philosophy class. Because I think the vast majority of reasonable people would think about a thought experiment like this and say, of course you can't kill people to try to help other people. I think there are going to be a lot of cases like this where the way you're doing reasoning that admittedly will get right answers sometimes, you're going to get really, really wrong answers here. Like speaking to Jack Bauer, like in 24, you've seen 24?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Basically, every time Jack Bauer tortures someone, he's doing it because of your kind of reasoning. This utilitarian reasoning of, well, if we do this kind of bad thing, then maybe we can do more good. Like, you know, and the problem is, this isn't right. I know this show like kind of glorified this and makes people think like this is like a good thing to do, but it's really not. And I think that's demonstrable when we think about what if Jack Bauer did worse things. Like in the last season, it got really bad. He was really, really out of control. But there are other times where it's like, yeah, like, you know, if I stab this guy in the hand, then I can try to find the suitcase nuke. And there are some people like, yeah, stab him in the hand. He's a terrorist. Like, who cares? Like that kind of thing. But almost no one who thinks that thinks it's okay to rape the terrorist to try to find the suitcase nuke? And I'll just ask you if you fall in the same camp. Like if Jack Bauer knows if he rapes the terrorist that he can find the suitcase nuke, should he do it? Is it morally right to do it?
I have to think about that one.
Yeah. I don't have to think about it. I don't think you should have to think about it either. I think that's really, really, really obviously wrong. There's some things that you just don't do, regardless of the good consequences that might happen from them, or else, you know, and there's lots of cases. I can do this all day with you if you want, but instead, I think I was going to say, like, I think this is why you've got the wrong view, and I'm not expecting you to change your mind today, because this is like going on in your head all the time. I don't expect anyone to change their mind about that right away. But I want you to start like looking out for cases where your worldview leads to kind of terrifying conclusions like this, and rethink the entire way that you process morality.
I'll think about it a little bit. I got to go to class.
Yeah,
but it's good talking to you, man.
It's great talking to you. I'm glad you stopped
Interesting thoughts.
Have a great day, man. All right.
That went a while.
It did go a while. That was like a 40-minute dialogue.
Wow.
Or 35 minutes or something like that. It took me a while to figure out that you were doing utilitarianism, because I was looking out for that. Like, I thought in my head, like, I bet Tim might do a utilitarian on me. But you kept on doing so much zygote stuff about, like, how they're totally not babies that I just kind of, I got on that track and I didn't ask earlier.
Yeah, so what I was trying to imply, and, like, what I wanted to accomplish with this was to try to like get as close as I could to simulating the difficulty of someone who's jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
In a not like unreasonable, like I've stacked the deck against you in an unreasonable way.
Right. Because
like so many actual conversations are more like this, where like the amount of time you spend making arguments from the course is like 10% of the dialogue, right?
There's a sense. There's a sense where like this was more real to life than both the role plays yesterday that we recorded.
Like to some extent,
yeah.
But like trying to pull that off in a way that is like appropriately balanced and not like unfair to you,
right,
is hard to pull off. So I'm not sure how well I hit the mark there, but that is what I was aiming for.
Yeah.
What I was trying to do with the zygote thing was to say it's like it seems like they don't matter as much.
Right.
And so just to say baby it's because it doesn't matter as much,
right?
Whether or not they get killed, not whether or not they're persons.
Right.
I don't think I ever like indicated that they actually aren't persons.
Yeah. So I mean, it's certainly like I could tell like here's a guy who thinks like some people are only instrumentally valuable versus intrinsically valuable, and so I was going with the intrinsic versus instrumental thing and trying to get towards that.
Sure.
And I just hadn't heard anything that sounded as utilitarian as it did towards the end there when I picked up on it, which was like becoming way more obvious. But you were using some phrases to kind of clue me in, I think, also.
I stepped up the obvious a little bit more towards the end, and then I think that's just kind of a matter of trying to figure out like we're trying to find that line, of appropriately vague but also not like unreasonably vague.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from Rachel?
Rachel's like,
Sure.
I've got a lot of thoughts.
She had to sit there quietly for 40 minutes or something.
It was really hard for me to not want to jump in.
What's wrong with you? He's like, utilitarian, you idiot.
I wasn't thinking that strongly of a criticism in my head.
If I could ask you specifically,
Sure.
How long into it did you figure out that I was utilitarian?
I think I had an unfair advantage by the fact that we were doing an exercise and it was you. I knew you were going to do utilitarian. So I'm already looking for it.
Fair. You guys are like reading based on just knowing me.
Right. But if I was on a college campus and you were a student, I think I, in my style, would have jumped on the utilitarian track quicker than Josh did. Mm-hmm. Sure. But I think that the questions you were asking and where you were going with that was completely fair. I loved this exercise because I think that it gave people an idea of how long you can spend telling stories and asking questions about things that are unrelated to course material.
Yes.
And it happens way more than I think people realize. I also think that sometimes we want to oversimplify how it's going to be. And people aren't simple. People are complex. So sometimes our conversations can be really complex and they can go on way longer than
And the people we talk
practice
to
did.
are often not straightforward at all. Like
Exactly.
they might be talking about this stuff out loud for the first time. And so like you've got to do all this work of trying to figure out like, hey, what is it that they mean by the words that they're saying?
And when you were trying to clarify with Tim about like, are you utilitarian, the questions you asked, I think most students would probably say, well, I don't think they're persons, but something else like that too. And that's a judgment call. Do you want to do like an equal rights argument, or do you want to talk about utilitarianism?
Right.
I would recommend, and my style is always, if I think they have a worldview like utilitarianism or something similar, I do not talk about abortion. And I liked that you put that aside. Let's put that aside for a second.
I think that is the right call.
Your worldview is interesting. Let's talk about it. That is most helpful to other people, I think. One thing I think that was really unrealistic that I just want to point out, when the Philosophy 101 came up towards the beginning, that was Josh and Tim making a joke about Philosophy 101 classes and how harmful they can be to people's thoughts.
Yes.
So
that was a little bit of breaking the fourth
that was
wall there.
that was a breaking character. I want people to know. I don't think Josh would ever say, "Have you been enjoying your Philosophy 101 class lately?"
That was very snarky.
Yes. So usually I want people to know I wouldn't recommend that tone of voice. And that was
It's a good thing that you pointed out that was a joke, because I was like, that was so early on, I was even remembering that I said that. But I'm glad you pointed that. Don't be snarky like that with people.
Something I did really like is when he trotted out a toddler for the woman pushing her car into the lake. I loved that your transition from creating a parallel situation to describing the logic, you said, this seems really reasonable to me. What do you think? I loved that.
Why?
Because it's not as awkward as saying, that's my logic, or I want to talk about the logic behind this parallel situation. It seems like a more natural conversational transition to say, and that decision to jump in the water and save the child and to want to help the woman, that seems really reasonable to me. What do you think?
It's more open-minded ease too, because
Yes.
by saying to me, I'm giving them sort of, there's still an openness, like maybe I'm wrong, maybe my view is wrong about this. Correct me if I'm off, but it helps like signal to them,
Yes.
maybe I'm not this closed-minded pro-life debate expert guy. I'm hopefully would cause them to remain open and keep talking.
Exactly. It's different than saying, so because I've created this parallel situation, I have this solid logic, now compete with it.
Right.
It's way different. It's like, this is how I'm looking at it. How do you look at it? I love that.
I think it's good.
You can tell that I've just dropped the mic, right? Right? Respond. Go ahead.
One of the differences in, I think, our style playing the pro-life person from kind of like this one versus the other podcast is, I think, the ratio of common ground side of things versus like clarifying questions is pretty different. I think I ask more clarification questions and I spend less time on the common groundy stuff. Which is not intended as like a criticism, because again, like different styles, like people should be doing what's comfortable to them. But what I want to ask you is, how much of like the fact that we're in studio do you think maybe deteriorated the number of clarification questions you were asking earlier on?
A lot. In fact, there were a couple of moments in the actual dialogue where I was actually thinking about kind of sort of stopping your character from talking and asking more questions so that I could ask some questions. Because like towards the beginning, what I was wanting to do was ask a lot of clarification questions, and you kind of knew where you wanted to go. And we got on this train real fast where like this guy kept asking me questions, and I kind of felt like I don't want to be like dodgy, but I kind of thought about like, okay, it was very obvious to me, like, I have asked this guy, like, basically one question now, and that's, like, not good, and that's part of what's causing the confusion, but, like, you had this character going, it's kind of like, I'm just going to run with it, but, yeah, so on an actual outreach, I would be asking a lot more clarification questions, especially early on. The amount of common groundy stuff I did, I think, is pretty much...
That's pretty standard.
That's pretty standard for me. It just means that I'm spending more time doing both at a typical outreach, unless someone, like... Again, like every once in a while, we talk to people who know exactly where they want to go. And in that case, it's a different thing. I remember being at Fresno State one time doing an outreach, and this guy came up. He saw it was a JFA outreach. He saw the thing, and I kind of said hi and asked him his view. And he's like, I've got like 5 minutes to get to the other end of campus to get to my philosophy class. He said, can I walk with you? And he's like, all right. So we walked quick, like both of us were tall, like, fast, long leg walkers. And I threw away what JFA calls the 3 essential skills. I didn't ask him any questions. I didn't, I guess I was listening. I didn't find any common ground. It was literally the fast track debate. He would say this thing. Okay, here's my counter. He would say this thing. Here's my counter. I would say this thing. He would do like, okay, well, it seems like the new this counter. And we did this rat-a-tat-tat thing all the way to his class. And then he said, thanks, that was awesome, and goodbye.
That's
so
great.
There's exceptions. And this was a little bit more like, this guy's got a track. I'll kind of go with it for the sake of whatever Tim's wanting to do for this dialogue.
And much of what I was trying to do was trying to have more interjection, more interaction than like what Rachel was doing with me the other day.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder on your side. Like I think at a strictly argument level, I don't think the character that I was playing was that advanced.
No.
But I was more ambiguous to work with.
Right.
And talking at you a lot more, which makes it harder for you to get at my worldview. And I think it's important to, if you're listening to this and be like, man, Josh is so obtuse, like really, like that's a significant difference.
Yeah, this is why I'm glad we do these post commentaries. We can kind of talk about like, now that we tried doing a realistic analog to what we do on campus, like let's talk about where the actual differences are and to try to help people to figure out what is something close to what Josh, Tim, and Rachel do on campus.
Right.
Okay, well, that took a lot longer than the role plays that we did yesterday. So I think what I'm going to suggest is let's stop now. When this can be a podcast, and then I still want us to record one where you and Rachel dialogue, but we'll just make that just a separate episode, because I'm kind of guessing that if you're playing pro-choice the way you played pro-choice with me, that one will also probably be a long one, and I want us to be able to allow for it to be natural and more like outreach and not kind of this, like a really quick like studio version of a dialogue.
Yeah.